cool.
Awesome.
That's
Thanks
cool.
for agreeing to do the interview and everything.
No problem, man. No problem.
All right, yeah. So I guess I could start in now about the new Aeonsgate album, which actually came out today, I think, didn't it?
You know better than me, man.
Oh yeah, I was checking about it,
Mm.
and I thought it was interesting to find out that this album is apparently one big epic long song.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's something I know you haven't done before. So what was it like going into that process?
Well, I didn't know that was going to happen, actually. When I was contacted by John Dix the first time, he just wanted me to sing on one song. And so he sent me the stuff, like the demo stuff and the lyrics and some melody ideas, I guess. And I did my own thing over that. And then I sent him like several takes with kind of different kind of... Yeah, that's my kid in the background.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I sent him different takes and stuff, and he really loved it. And he sent me some more lyrics, like a poem and stuff to read. And, and he was really happy with that, and that was cool. And then we met in Stockholm because, he's a really famous tattoo artist as well. He was doing some ink convention. And then he told me that he actually made this song like a complete, like 59-minute song instead or something, which was cool. Which was just a great thing. I thought, wow, that's a cool idea, So from the beginning, it was just supposed to be like a 10-minute song or something, but he just got so inspired by the whole thing, so he turned it into like one 59-minute song instead. So, which was cool.
Yeah, definitely. So did you go in recording your vocals thinking it was just going to be
a
10-minute song?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because I didn't even get the whole part. I didn't even get the whole song. Pretty often it is like that. When you haven't met people before, they send you like the parts of the song where I'm supposed to sing, and so I only got the parts, But so eventually, when I heard the whole result, it was like totally different, which was cool. It was great. I loved that. My son.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, my son is trying to tell me something. Ja, vad är det? Ja, men jag har tagit upp den igen. Så. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's
my
fine.
wife is sleeping.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's cool.
No, but it was cool anyway, so it was like, it turned out to be like this big, long project, and I just loved the idea. He was like a bit nervous first when he mentioned it. He was like, oh, maybe I'm pissing Mats off now, but I was like, on the contrary, I think it's great. It's cool, and it worked out great, so. Well,
I'm looking forward to hearing the full thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious about Krux because I know that's sort of your main band as a full-time member. So is there going to be another Krux album? Is that in the works, or is that kind of on hiatus at the moment?
Oh, that's pretty much on the hiatus since, especially since I started singing with Cannabis, it kind of, already before that, Krux has always been the kind of band we never knew if we were going to make another album, or it had a lot to do with Leif as well, if he wanted to do another album, because we never knew. But if it hadn't been for me starting to do the Candlemass shows, we would probably have done something. But since I started doing the Candlemass thing, I think that Leif kind of started to think about another project to have on the side as well, and that's when he started to do the Avatorium stuff. But Krux is the kind of thing that, it's no problem for us to, like, the day we feel like we want to do a new album, we do that, But it's, but we have to wait and see. Right now, there's no time for it, and Leif doesn't have the time for it to write for it either, so that's the problem.
Yeah, that's understandable. I was a really big fan of that last Krux album in particular, because I felt like it was it was very interesting, very unique, because the first two were just these epic, great doom albums, and the third one had sort of a twist to it.
Yeah,
and
I think so as well.
When you came in to sing on that album, were you thinking, did you think like right away, this is really different, you know, I might have to use some different approaches here and there, or did it just kind of happen naturally?
It happened pretty naturally. The difference was that the two first albums, we kind of we recorded everything really fast, and we just went into a studio, all of us, you know, like the old days. But on the third album, it was very much like it was hard to get everyone to hook up in a studio at the same time, because Fredrik was out with Opeth, and we were really all very busy guys. And at the same time, I had my own studio at home, so I can do the vocals in my studio. And so the third album, it was very much more like everyone was working on separately, you know. I mean, I could do some work in... Okay, sorry. You're back now?
Yeah, I'm back.
Sorry. No, but the whole thing with the third album was that we recorded everyone in their separate studios, you know. So Fredrik and Jürgen recorded the guitars at Fredrik's place in his small studio, and I did my vocals in my place, and so we didn't really know how it would kind of finish, you know, because now normally when you're in a studio at the same time, you kind of feel all at the same, you know, pretty immediately, okay, we sound like this or this, you know. So I didn't really know what it was going to turn out like, but you know, I really like the sound of the album. It's like, you know, it's a different sound to the two first ones, and you know, every album has a different sound. So I really like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one. So going backwards a bit though, because I've noticed there's not too many interviews with you online. There's some text ones, but there's not a ton on YouTube or anything.
No.
And so I was kind of curious, how did you begin singing, your singing career? Was it something you did from a really young age, or was it something that you got into later on?
Probably a bit later than most of my colleagues or whatever. I mean, a lot of my friends, they kind of started with their bands when they were like 14, 15 or something, you know, playing their instrument for the first time. I started pretty late. You know, I was like in my first proper band that could actually play when I was around 20 or something. You know, probably the first band I did was probably like I was 17 or something. Like the first demo I did with some band or whatever, you know. But I mean, the first proper band that could actually play was probably around 20 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
So did you start out with singing, or was there another instrument that you were more into at first?
I started playing when I was like, you know, when I was like maybe 9, 10. I played the mandolin, and then I started playing the violin. So between 10 and 12 years old, I played violin. But then I was like 13, 14. I quit that because I was doing a lot of sports as well. And at the same time, I was like borrowing my brother's guitar a little as well, you know, but it wasn't more than that. But, you know, I always knew that I had a musicality, you know. But I never really did anything with it because I didn't have any friends around me that played in bands or anything. So, you know, I was so much into other stuff like sports and stuff. But but at the same time, I was like a really music nerd, you know. I had all this stuff, and I imported stuff from England, you know, like albums you couldn't get in Sweden, and you know, special limited edition, you know, picture singles, you know, whatever. So I was like importing all that stuff, and there was no one else in my town who had all that stuff. So I was really interested, you know, listening.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I was really brought up with a lot of different music from my two brothers, and because my brothers are way older than me, so so you know, they had totally different music taste, you know. One brother was like the really hard rock guy who went to see Jimi Hendrix and the Who in the 60s, and he introduced me to Black Sabbath and stuff when I was like 6 years old, and all that stuff. And then I had my other brother who listened more to like you know, Supertramp and Roxy Music and David Bowie and Lou Reed and Elton John, and so I got that stuff from him. And then I had my father who was like a big opera fan, so I got that stuff from him. And my mother was more like into jazz and stuff. So, you know, it was like a total combination of music in our home. And I really loved it all, you know. So I'm really happy about that nowadays. That, you know, I get a lot of different music from my family, which was cool.
Yeah, that sounds great. Definitely a very diverse group of, you know, background influences there in a way.
Yeah.
To be grown up with.
Yeah.
So when you did decide that you were going to start singing, was it something that you did because you were a fan of any specific singers, or was it something that you did because you were in a band at that point? And how did that come about?
I didn't do it for any specific reason. I mean, it's like my best friend who started to play drums in his first band. That's how it started. And he just knew that I was so much into music, So he asked me, hey, can't you sing? And I was like, I don't know. And I started rehearsing with him the way it is, and it was, of course, really, I really enjoyed it, and it was lots of fun, and we did our first concerts and stuff, and that's where it starts, you just do it out of passion, because you just love doing it. And, I mean, I had everything staked out for me. I had a girlfriend since 8 years back, and I had a steady job at, like, a big company in Sweden as well, when I was young, but, I just quit all that, I just left everything and said, fuck. I got to do this because I just felt in my heart that, I got to play music. So I quit everything. I left my girlfriend and left the apartment, and I quit my job, and I stood there with nothing practically. So that was just out of passion. But when it came to, inspirations, of course, for me, since I kind of came into the hard rock genre pretty early, the influences were pretty the same as for most guys around that time. It was David Coverdale and Ronnie Dio and Ian Gillan and, those guys from the hard rock genre. On the other side, I really like Peter Gabriel a lot and David Bowie as well.
Yeah, you can hear a little bit of that, the kind of the difference between those two approaches in your singing, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
From like Therion compared to Krux, It's pretty different approaches.
Yeah. Now, in Therion it was cool because in Therion I was really allowed to do a little of that Bowie thing, which was fun because I'd love to do it, but normally you can't really do that in the more, contemporary hard rock situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember hearing the perennial Sophie and at first not being sure who was singing that part.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that was lots of fun, man. I co-wrote that one as well, so I got the chance to kind of put my influence into it pretty early since we were sending ideas to each other for that album, and I came up with the melody lines for the chorus and one of the verses as well. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was one of my favorite tunes from that album.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's such a big ensemble album, but I think that it also has those standout tracks like that. You can point to as like songs too, which is something that maybe some other albums like that don't always have. So I think that's what's cool about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really really happy about that album, and it was really cool by Christopher as well that he let the rest of us write stuff. I think I wrote and co-wrote like 5 or 6 songs on that album. And, Snowy did stuff, and Petter, the drummer, did a lot of stuff, and Johan and Christian, the brothers, did stuff as well. So it was a big combination of stuff, and I think it turned out really great, It's a really cool album, but it's also an album that some Therion fans didn't like at all. But it's always like that with Therion because they changed their style so much. So, of course, some fans are always, like, really disappointed, and some fans, they're always there, Sorry.
Yeah, that is how it is with a band like that. Such a long career,
Yeah.
So, in a situation like that, are you ever maybe at first a bit hesitant to come into a band that has such a history, like with Candlemass, or is it something that you're pretty comfortable with in general?
You mean both with Therion and Cannabis, or any band at all?
Yeah, Therion, Candlemass.
Well, it's totally different. The situation was totally different with Therion and Cannabis because Therion, to be honest, when I first was approached in 2003 by Therion, I had never heard of him. Because here in Sweden, Therion, that's the kind of band Therion were like 10 years ago. Here in Sweden, most people didn't know about them, because they are bigger outside of Sweden than in Sweden. So, but I knew Johan, the bass player, so he asked me if I could do some guest performance on Series B and Lemuria, and that's how it started. So no, I wasn't hesitant at all because I didn't really know about their background anyway. It was like, actually when I said yes to doing the tour in 2004, I got like 25 songs to rehearse by myself, and we went down to the rehearsal room, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like all those songs, but can we just skip that Therion song? I really don't like it. And I didn't know that was like their Smoke on the Water, you know. It's like, that's the song they always end every show with. And I was like, hey, can we skip that? Fuck it, I think it sucks.
Yeah.
So I was like, I didn't really know about their history. So, but with Cannabis, it was a different thing. And that's why it was very important for me to kind of say to journalists and stuff that, hey, I haven't actually really joined Candlemass yet, because, I mean, I'm just helping the guys out right now. Because they've changed singers a number of times, you know, so I was like, I really didn't just want to step in as a new Candlemass singer right away, because I was playing with Krux and I was really happy with that, you know. So, and I had already said no to Candlemass 5 years earlier as well, you know. Mm-hmm. So Candlemass is a different kind of thing because they have such a legacy, and it's like, you know, since I'm a fan of Candlemass as well, I kind of understand the problem with Candlemass getting a new singer again, you know, in 2012 like that. So I was very much like, hey guys, I don't want to come into the band and be like a new official singer. Maybe it's just better that, you know, I just help you guys out with the concerts, and we see what happens, see what it feels like instead, because, you know, it's maybe a better move to do it like that. And that's how we did it. So I mean, I'm still not like an official member of Candlemass, and we haven't really recorded any new stuff either. Even though, of course, everyone in the band wants me to be their new singer, and everybody feels that way, you know. And I feel the same way as well. I think Candlemass is fantastic. The only problem is that if I want to be a new member in Candlemass, I want to make sure that we get out and play as well, you know. Then we got to continue having a career, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that is a bit like, right now it's, you know, we don't know what's happening with that. So, but it's cool, you know. We do the shows, and it's always fantastic when we do the shows, because they're always great shows. So I just hope that we can sort something out, so, for the next couple of years.
Yeah, because initially I thought it was kind of strange when, you know, the Psalms for the Dead came out, and then you were announced as the singer. At first I thought, oh, they're going to do an album with Mats? That would be awesome. Yeah. You know? But then I was like, oh, they're not going to do another album. They just want to do tours now. And I thought, well, that's cool, but, you know. No, well, I mean, kind of interesting to hear that.
But, I mean, the whole thing, of course, as you might know, is, you know, I've been involved with all the albums from the reunion album with Messiah, because I've been doing all the pre-production for Leif for all the albums. So I've been involved with Candlemass for a long time, of course, since me and Leif have known each other. So it was pretty easy for them to ask me to do it, you know, because I had, you know, many of the songs that they recorded with Robert as well. I had actually done the initial recordings that Robert listened to, for example, like King of the Grey Island and stuff. So, you know, so I knew a lot of stuff, and I kind of knew what it was all about. And, you know, I mean, they of course they wanted to keep Robert in the band. That's why they did Psalms for the Dead with him, you know. But eventually, when that album was done, they, you know, they just had to do something. And, you know, they had 3 shows booked, and they were like desperate, and they asked me, hey, can you help us out? Because they knew I could learn the lyrics fast, and I knew the songs and stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, you know, because I had the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I find interesting, too, about your creative partnership with Leif is that, you know, Abstrakt Algebra was maybe kind of the first full-on metal project that you did, looking through your discography. Yeah. Because before that, you were in more hard rock style bands. Yeah. And was that something that you wanted to do? Like, you know, I want to do some more metal stuff at that point, or was it that you became friends with Leif, and then from there, kind of that collaboration?
I mean, it was all about, I mean, I think all the time when, I mean, the first few albums that I did in my career, they were not like really representative of what I really wanted to do. Especially, I mean, the first band, Swedish Erotica from Gothenburg, that was like a band that I had already said no to once before. they were friends of mine, you know, but I just felt, this is not my style of music or whatever. But then of course, when I quit everything, I left my girlfriend and I quit my job and everything, they asked me again, because I was doing the backing vocals on that album. And I was like, okay, here I get a record contract with Virgin. And it was like a dream come true to get a record contract or whatever, you know. So, and they were friends of mine as well. So I was like, okay, let's give it a shot, you know. But that's eventually why I left Swedish Erotica as well and moved to Stockholm and joined Treat, because I felt Treat was slightly more to the style that I was brought up with, more like a bit like Whitesnake and the Hammond organ and blah, 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 you know. And I was friends with the Treat guys as well. But at the same time, when we finally recorded that album with Treat, we kind of wanted to change the name because, you know, we didn't feel like it sounded like Treat anymore because, but, you know, the way it was. They had to keep the name for the record company and management and blah, blah, blah. And then we just had to put that band down to rest. So all the time I was like, you know, I was listening to harder music than the music I was playing, you know. So when Leif came up with the Abstrakt Algebra stuff, I just thought it was fucking great. And I was like, wow, this is cool. This is cool to do something that I haven't done before, you know.
Mm-hmm. And of course, that ended up being more of what you're known for at this point too, which is interesting because obviously starting out with a band like Swedish Erotica, that's you know, nowadays, you know, people who are fans of your work since Abstrakt Algebra look back at that and they're like, whoa, you know,
yeah, sure, man.
Wouldn't have guessed that he would have done that.
No,
you know?
sure not. No, but I mean, but the cool thing though is that, I mean, I just happened to hear some songs with Swedish Erotica a while ago, and it actually sounds pretty good considering how fast we did it and the style of music it is. So, I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, in its genre, it's still, you know, it's cool. It doesn't sound totally dated, so it's okay, right? But I mean, but of course the Abstract thing was like a cool thing for me to do and a step into a new world, and actually that was like the album that got me the Yngwie gig a couple of years later as well, so, or 1 year later or whatever, so that was cool.
Yeah. And was the Yngwie gig kind of the one that got you recognized, like, I don't know, maybe in the streets, people starting to be like, oh yeah, he's an Yngwie singer, like just at first, and then from there you got different projects?
Yeah, I mean, the Yngwie thing is probably the one thing that has, you know, I mean, a lot of people, they heard me the first time with Yngwie Malmsteen, you know, that's it. Mm-hmm. So, of course, a lot of people thought that I was almost like a guy, he wants to be a power metal singer, or he wants to do those kind of. So I was approached by a lot of, and I'm still approached by those kind of guitar players who wanted me to sing on their albums, and they heard me with Yngwie Malmsteen the first time. So, of course, that was important for me to kind of put my name out on the map, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because you've obviously worked with a lot of shred kind of guitarists, you know, with in Fatal Force and even to a certain degree with Frederick and Krux, and then of course Yngwie. Was that just, and also in Vance even, but was that something that you I guess they just came to you and you're like, okay, cool, I'll sing on your album. It wasn't something that you're like, you know, I like working with shred guitar players or anything like that.
No. It just happened to be like that after Yngwie, you know, because since Yngwie is such a influential guitar player, you know. I mean, there are so many other guitar players that hear every album that he's doing, or at least in the 90s they did still. So, of course, that's how it happened, you know. I was just approached suddenly by a number of guitar players around the world. And that's how I got the Advance thing, you know. And also, of course, Torben with Fatal Force. Those two albums were those kind of albums.
Yeah, and there's some. I noticed, like on those albums, you do have more of that power metal-ish vocal style going on, but then you look at the years that came out, it's around the same time that you did the first Krux album and stuff like that, which is totally different. So, do you find it has always come natural to you to do these different vocal styles, or did you kind of have to cultivate them over the years?
Well, I mean, the thing that probably felt most unnatural for me is to sing the power metal stuff. That's probably the most unnatural thing for me to do. I mean, probably the most unnatural albums for me that I kind of feel most weird about today are the Advance albums. because that Vance was like a combination of power metal and cheesy keyboard metal sometimes. And sometimes there was a bit more like a purple vibe as well, which was cool. But, you know, I mean, Vance was the kind, I did 2 albums with Olaf, and both albums I was like really, really hesitant to doing them, and he really persuaded me and like, called me up. And I was in a situation when I did the first album where I didn't really have that much to do at that time. That was like 2002 or something. And so, I mean, that was part of why I did it, because I wanted to get out and play as well and tour. And, you know, but when we did the second album, I was really busy with Therion on tour. So it was hard to find the time to do the second album, so I had to do it really fast. But, yeah, so I mean, probably to answer your question, the power metal stuff is the stuff that I'm least, you know, familiar or comfortable with, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I also have some, I guess, related to that, some sort of vocal technique type of questions, because the form I administrate is a lot of us are up-and-coming singers, you know, kind of curious about how to do some of that stuff. So one thing you're obviously really known for is you have the rasp and the grit kind of vocal style. Yeah. So have you ever hurt yourself with that, and did you have to kind of play with it for a while to figure out how you wanted to do it, and how did that develop?
Well, the thing is that what's interesting is that was never like a deliberate thing to do that, because if I listen to the first demos I did, you know, like with the first proper band that I had, I sing with a pretty you know, not raspy voice, you know. I sing with a clean voice. That's what felt natural at that time, you know, and I didn't even think about it, you know. But then when I did, I think probably when I did that Swedish Erotica album, it was like different style. It was supposed to be a different style, and I just, without thinking of it, started to sing like that, and I had to do it really fast as well in the studio, because they sacked their singer in the studio and stuff. So that just happened naturally, and I guess I got into that whole more like a Caballero thing as well, and a Ronnie Dio thing, and it just happened naturally, you know. And but the funny thing is that when we did the first Candlemass show in 2012, I was, you know, gonna sing the old Messiah stuff, and so I had to sing in a different way, and then I suddenly came back to singing the way I had done like 25 years earlier when I did my first demos. So, because on the Messiah stuff, you know, of course, obviously, if you want to do it the way he does it, you have to sing it more clean again, you know, which was cool. But, I mean, that whole raspy thing it just happened naturally, you know. I never had any thoughts about it, really. And I never, and, you know, I don't think I've had more problems with my voice than any normal singer, you know. So that doesn't have, if I've been sick or anything during a tour, it had just to do with being sick, you know, getting a flu or whatever, which affects the voice. It didn't really have to do anything with me singing in a raspy manner, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. So is that for that kind of a singing too? Do you find that you have to put on more volume? You have to get a bit louder to do that, or is it something that doesn't really require too much volume and you kind of control it in a different way?
I mean, it depends on how you want to do it. I mean, for sure, it's in one way it takes more power to be able to sing high notes with the raspiness at the same time. You know, like Ronnie Dio did sometimes. People don't understand how high he was singing sometimes, because he had such a thick and full voice behind it, you know. But I mean, if Geddy Lee from Rush would sing the same thing, people would be like, "Oh wow, he's got such a high-pitched voice," you know. But they actually sing the same thing. It's just a question of timbre, or whatever you call it, in the voice, you know. But of course, it takes more to reach those high notes and still have that power behind it. It's the same like a guy like Bryan Adams, for instance. A lot of his stuff is pretty high to sing as well, and you don't understand that until you actually sing the songs, you know, because he's got a lot of power in his voice as well, or used to have at least. So yeah, I mean, I guess it takes a bit more, and that's actually like one. Yeah, there are certain tricks you can do sometimes if you need to reach the high notes, and you don't have the power to reach that note. I mean, you have to approach it slightly different, you know. Just have to use less power, kind of start the notes with less power, and then you can push it or whatever, you know. There are always different techniques to reach whatever you want to reach, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the classic problems I think a lot of people going into singing rock and metal have is both. One is hitting the higher notes, and then two, hitting it with power, hitting it with the grit that you might want to have and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a and I think one thing that people forget about as well that is really, really important is that it's so much easier to sing stuff that actually you wrote yourself. Because, I mean, if you sing stuff that you actually wrote yourself, if you wrote the lyrics yourself, and if you came up with the melodies yourself, it's so much easier to sing it because you did that stuff by instinct. It came from somewhere within, you know. But it's so much harder, like when I joined Yngwie, and I'm given songs from 4 different singers with 4 different kinds of voices. That's such a challenge, you know, because I have to sing stuff that someone else came up with who had a totally different voice than me. So in that case, it becomes much harder.
You know? And is it easier, would you say, maybe for people if they actually want to figure out some of those technique things, it might actually help to sing something of their own instead of trying to sing another song?
Well, I mean, I just want to, you know, it's like I can tell. For me, it's a pretty big difference if I go out and tour and I sing most of the songs that I sing on the tour is stuff that I actually wrote myself. It's so much easier to sing it because it came from the right place, so to speak. It's because you're just more relaxed with it. Because the thing is that when you get up on stage and sing, the more confident and more comfortable you are with songs, it's so much easier to sing them because you don't just stress out and you don't, you know, you're kind of more relaxed, you know, which is half of the secret to actually reach the notes and stuff as well. You just gotta, you know, just be, don't stress out too much about it, you know. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But of course, in many cases, you don't have that option. And then, of course, the next logical step is to actually make sure that you really become a friend with the song, you know, before you get out on tour. Which is, of course, in my case, I very often, you know, I bring my iPhone and I take long walks and I just feed my body with those songs, you know, to really learn them really, really well. Not only to really learn the lyrics, but also to kind of get them into my system. So, you know, after hearing a song 20 times that I never heard before, you suddenly start to know stuff by instinct in the song, which is really important, you know, because it helps you out when you're going to learn the lyric as well. Suddenly you're a friend with the song, which is really important to do that. For me, at least, it's really important to do that fundamental groundwork. Because I've been doing a lot of those shows when I did a couple of shows with Royal Hunt, a Danish band, where I had to learn like 8 songs just for the 3 shows. And, you know, I had to do it like that to really become friends with the songs and, you know, learn the lyrics really well. So I always try to take it really seriously and do a really good job. You know?
I think that's actually really interesting because I don't hear people mention that too much, really.
No.
That's a great phrase too. Could become friends with the songs because, you know, that really is what you have to do, and you want to sing a song well, and I think that's a pretty cool way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same with, you know, you can just imagine like me having to go up and play the Cannabis songs in 2012. I didn't have like a lot of time to learn those, because I mean, even though I'd heard Candlemass for many years, a lot of their old lyrics, I didn't really know the lyrics. I just knew like the choruses and stuff. So I really, because it's a kind of a challenge to go up and sing songs that both the Messiah and Robert and Johansson and maybe it was Wikström had sung, and I want to do them in a good way, you know. And you know that everyone in the crowd, they know every fucking word, you know. So you just got to make sure that, okay, I'm going to stand there doing my first show, and I don't, you know, I never want to have any help on stage. I don't want to have any lyric sheets or any of that stuff, you know. I just want to make sure that I can do every word. the way it's supposed to be. So that's why I really had to learn the songs really well, and you know, I did my homework, so to speak, which was great because it turned out great and it was really good for shows.
Yeah, they're sounding really good from some of the better quality uploads that people have put on to YouTube with Vakken and everything.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
so that's definitely really cool. Actually, another kind of question I have I don't think that's probably been brought up too much is on the last Krux album, there's a couple songs where you actually use a really deep low register, like on Prince's R and the Invisible Pagoda and then the Death Farm.
Yeah.
When did you figure out how to do that kind of a sound? Because that's something that before that, you know, I wouldn't have expected. I was listening to those songs, I'm like, whoa, you know, that was kind of unexpected.
Man, now I haven't heard the album for such a long time, so I mean, the Prince of Azar is such a long song, so I hardly remember all the parts of it. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to start with, I think I'm not afraid to do different stuff, which is a good thing to start with. And I'm not I think like in the genre, well, like hard rock genre, very often singers, for instance, they are really scared of stepping out of their comfort zone, and they're really scared to get reactions from fans that, oh, that's not heavy metal, oh, that's not power metal, you know, all that stuff. So, and I never really cared about that because, you know, I always did sing because I really enjoyed singing, you know. So I never really cared about that because I listen to so much different kind of music anyway. So I guess that's a good thing as well when you want to do different stuff like that, that you're not afraid to do it, that you want to play around with it, you want to have fun with it, and I'm not scared of you know, trying different stuff out, you know, which, you know, I think that's the first criteria for actually doing all that stuff. You got to have fun with it. Plus that, you know, I've done my fair amount of cover shows and played a lot of different music, you know. So I've had the opportunity to sing different kind of stuff, you know. So I guess that helps out as well.
Yeah, I imagine so. But that is something I thought was interesting about your vocal performances over the years, is that compared to some of the other singers in some of the same genres that you've sang in and stuff, you actually also do utilize some of the lower register stuff as well, and I've always thought that was really cool, because a lot of times when people think of people singing even in doom metal or really heavy, you know, music like that, they think more of singing higher notes, you know. Yeah. And of course you do that, but then you also have these times where you do the lower kind of stuff. I think that
now I remember the stuff that you're referring to, and when I do that really low stuff, it has a lot to do with as well that I have the opportunity to try it out in my own studio as well. That's really important. I mean, nowadays I'm so used to using my own mic and using my own studio all the time, so that gives me the chance to kind of play around with that and give it a chance. Because I mean, normally if you go into a studio to do an album like that, you know, maybe you don't have the right guy to work with in the studio, you don't have the time to do all that stuff to try it out. But that's of course the good thing with doing it yourself at home, that you can try stuff out, and you can, again, I mean, the idea came from me to do it like that, and I can tell pretty early that, yeah, this sounds cool, let's do it like this, you know. So it's just a question of playing around with it and giving yourself the time to try different stuff out. And I have a pretty good instinct for when I know that, yeah, this will work, this will be a cool addition to the whole thing. So, you know, I tried to do it like that, and the other guys just thought, yeah, wow, that sounds cool, you know. So it's good to have your own studio to play around with it as well, and to be friends with your studio and the mic and know how it works and all that stuff, you
know. Yeah, I think it would take a certain amount of time to fully kind of get the capabilities of each microphone kind of, you know, going.
I mean, to be honest, I've always been really, really fucking lazy with trying out different stuff, because I kind of knew pretty early on. I mean, I bought myself a microphone probably like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And that's the one I'm using still. And I probably used that microphone on like 30 albums or something. And I never changed because I could tell pretty early on that I feel good with this one. It kind of, my kind of voice works well with this microphone, even though the microphone only cost like $1,000 or even less, So I just, that's important as well, to find an environment and the sound and the microphone that you just feel, yeah, this is me. So every time I turn on my computer and turn on my software, I know that I have the same setting that I always have. I can never say to myself, oh, no, it doesn't sound like yesterday. I can't say that because I knew it. Yes, it sounds exactly like yesterday, you motherfucker, Because when you get into a studio, you can always get those like, fuck, something was different yesterday, man. And, well, no, it isn't. And you don't know because you can't really trust. You don't know the guy behind the desk that well. And maybe he did something different from the day before because that has happened many times in studios before, So that's also a thing when you do it in your own studio. You got your comfort zone. You know that you can trust the stuff. It's only up to you if you feel good that day to do the vocals or not, Which is also important to do a good performance, That's one of the things that is important. You got to be really happy with the environment where you do your job,
Yeah, I can imagine you wouldn't want to be in an environment that you weren't comfortable with. That's going to block your singing abilities.
The thing is that it's also interesting to look at from the other side. Like when I did both the first two Krux albums, I was actually going to another studio and it was very much like, I just go in and do like first takes of most stuff, I just did everything really, really fast. If I remember right, I think I did that first Krux album was done like in 4 hours or something. It was like, I just fucking did everything. And that was cool as well, because then I didn't care if I kind of didn't hit that note exactly, because, it wasn't supposed to be that kind of album. It was supposed to be just fucking get up and do it, which is cool as well, because otherwise it's really easy to overanalyze everything. And so, the third Krux album, I was actually much more analyzing everything I did. But that works out fine as well, because I know that I don't need to overanalyze everything, because it's still Krux. It's supposed to be, fucking groovy, and there are no clicks or anything. It's just like, spontaneous and organic. So, but that was also a good position for me to do the first Krux album that fast, because I kind of learned afterwards that, hey, I don't actually need to be so anal and exact about everything. It would work out fine anyway, which was cool.
Yeah. So when you're recording, if you had to do an album in 4 hours, you probably didn't have to do too many takes for each song. No. But generally speaking, do you always kind of go through a song in one go and then touch up, or do you kind of how does it in terms of that aspect?
Sorry. Well, it has totally to do with what kind of album or project it is, because right now I'm doing an album with an Italian guitar player. He's got a project called Hollow Haze. And of course, that's a situation where I have never met the guitar player before. I have just received 8 demos. So of course, those songs are totally new to me, totally. I've never sung them before. So in order for me to, if I would go in and just sing those songs straight, I would have to know the songs really, really well. I would need to really rehearse the songs, go through the lyrics a lot, to really feel comfortable with them, because I never had a chance to actually rehearse it, So that's a totally different thing. So when I record the vocals for this album, I do it in separate takes, I start with the first verse, I sing it a couple of times I listen to the songs many times to kind of find the small stuff that I want to do that is outside of the original melody, to kind of make it a bit more organic and happening, and I feel that pretty early on, and then I start to record. Maybe I record like 3 takes or something, and then I choose stuff from that. That's how I do with this kind of album. But it's a totally different thing if I do an album with a band where we actually
wrote the songs together and did demos of the songs together, like I did with Gus G, for instance. I mean, on the Gus G album, I co-wrote 5 songs, and of course we did demos of those songs first. So, you know, when I actually did the real recording, I actually kept some of the demo vocals, and when I added some more, I could just do that really fast because the song was a good friend of mine, so to speak. So it's totally different from project to project.
Okay, that's definitely cool to hear. So I also am kind of curious about how you came to be involved with the Christmas Metal Symphony, because that's kind of a cool thing that you've done that isn't too well known throughout the world, but it's got some really big names on it. So how did that go about?
Yeah, that was a cool thing. I don't actually remember how they probably came up with my name because I had done the Therion stuff, and we had done some classical shows with Therion. That was probably the reason that they contacted me. I don't know actually who it was who came up with it, but you know, so that was like in 2008 or something. Was it 2008 and 2009? Because I did it two years in a row. So it was probably thanks to the Therion gig that I had before. And the first year I was doing that, it was, if I remember it right, it was more original material. I think I did some of the Staves of Time, and I did something, song, maybe Rising Force or something. It was more that every singer did their own career, so to speak, a couple of songs from their career. The year after that, it was more about doing covers, actually, because I did some, I don't know if I did Thunderstruck with ABCD, and I did The Victim of Changes with Judas Priest or something. So it was a bit of a different approach to those 2 years that I did it. But I mean, they were a bit unlucky as well, because they were hoping to sell more tickets the second year, I think, because there was like a big snowstorm in Holland, which normally doesn't happen. So when the snow hits Holland, people don't know how the fuck to get through the snow and get to the venue, because they're not used to it. In Sweden, it's no problem. So I think they lost some money there, and maybe the whole thing just faded out.
Yeah, that's too bad that would happen.
Because I was in contact all the time with Japp, the guy who was organizing it, because he wanted me to be part of it all the time, because I was the only one who did it both years, you know. And then they brought in different singers from year to year, and they actually tried to do it here in Sweden now last year, but I wasn't involved in that, because they used some of the guys again, Joey Belladonna from Anthrax and Jack Billy from Testament and stuff. But it didn't really work out, and the problem right now is that, you know, everybody's doing that in different countries. I mean, Germany, they have Mats Levén is doing his thing in Germany, I think, with the symphony orchestra, and like really big names like Ian Gillan and stuff on vocals. So it's kind of spreading that whole idea of doing with classical orchestra and stuff. So. But it was a cool experience, absolutely.
Yeah, it was cool for that to actually happen, because it's definitely a little bit outside of the box there.
Yeah.
And also, since you've talked about, you've had to do covers live quite a bit, and then you do have this project with Fredrik Åkesson, the Monsters of Metal.
Yeah.
I know you do, and I've seen some videos, and I thought it was cool to see you do like King Diamond and stuff, because as you can probably tell from my picture, I'm a big Merciful Fate fan too.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
And so how do you guys go about choosing those set lists whenever you get together to do it?
Well, now it's been many years since we did it, but I remember we did those shows probably early 2000 or something the first times, and it was probably a combination of me and Fredrik, stuff that we had already done and that we just wanted to do. If we were like, hey, if we're going to do some cover shows, we might as well do stuff that is really hard to play, that most people don't do all the time. That's when we started to do like the King Diamond stuff, and we did Faster Shark with Accept and all that stuff, and it was cool for me as well to do different vocalists, because I did Geoff Tate with Queens of the Reich, and I did King Diamond, and I did just a really diverse. I mean, that set to sing that set was pretty hard actually, because I had to switch from song style to song style. But I just thought it was really fun. I really enjoyed that. So it was just a question of us wanting to play songs that most people didn't play, because it was they didn't put the effort into learning.
Yeah, well, it definitely looks like it was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to do that again at some point, or is that just sort of whenever you feel like it, or maybe not?
The thing is that when we started doing that, we had Ricky on drums, Ricky Evansson, who played with Soilwork and Chimera for a while, and then he moved to Australia, but he's just back in Sweden now, and I met him last week, and we were actually talking about it would be fun to hook up with Fredrik again, and to do just like 1 week here in Stockholm, just to do it again, just for old time's sake. So who knows? We might actually be able to do that. It's just a question of everybody have to be home at the same time. Me and Fredrik, because Fredrik is out with Opeth now. So who knows? We might do it actually. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious about how, about nowadays in your free time. Do you listen to much music yourself? What kind of stuff in that regard are you into? Do you still keep up with new bands, or you listen to the old classics more? Or
well, that's the problem when you, because I'm pretty busy with the stuff that I do. So I don't have that much time to listen to music at all, which is a shame. But it has mostly to do actually with us having 2 kids now.
Yeah.
And they're still pretty small. So when you have such small kids, you don't have that much time left, because you really have to be really disciplined when it comes to, okay, I got to work 5 hours today doing vocals, then I got to take care of the kids for 2 hours, and then my wife is back home, then she can take the kids for 2 hours. It's everything is very different from before you had kids. That's the way it is. Anyone who has kids know what I'm talking about. So that makes it really hard to get the time to actually check out new bands or listen to new stuff. But of course, if I ever have the chance, I try to at least hear a song or two from something, and if I'm into that, I will get the album and I will continue listening to it, of course. But it's very much a question of listening to stuff that you already know, to be honest. And the thing is that also when you work so much with music, the first thing you want to do is not like to hear even more music. It's like you really need to do something totally different, like watching a movie, watching a TV series, or just hang out with your family, or playing soccer or whatever I do. So it's that's the way it is when you get a family as well. You have so much other priorities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that thing I know some people do, where you'll be touring with another band, and maybe there's a band on the bill you want to see live, and you'll kind of go and see them while they're playing? Do you do that kind of thing sometimes?
Yeah, of course. To be honest, I haven't done that many tours where the band we've been touring with has been like a band that I've been a total fan of. So it's just for that reason that it hasn't happened. But I'm totally into a lot of different bands and like that stuff, but when sometimes, nowadays when you're out on tour, you can have the most strange combinations of opening bands compared to what you do yourself. So sometimes it's almost like it makes no sense. Why do they open up for us? It's totally different style, but yeah, sure, that happens. Sometimes. We were out with Therion. We had some different opening acts that were good that I checked out and all that stuff. But sometimes it's about you don't have the time either, because sometimes you just need to get a couple of hours of sleep before the show or whatever, because you didn't sleep the night before. And, the first thing you do is not to turn up early at the venue to see the opening act. You just have to prepare for your own stuff. So.
Yeah, you don't always have the time for that stuff, I can imagine.
No.
So also, how about your writing process? Because I know obviously you have done a lot of session work, and people sometimes think of you as a bit of a session guy. But when you are writing your own lyrics, your own music, how do you usually go about doing that?
Well, normally the best thing for me is, in most cases, I'm working with a guitar player who has his own riffs or song ideas. So, for instance, when I've been doing the songs with Gus, it's been a question of I get the idea from him, but I don't want to listen to it until I'm actually in the studio and have imported it into my arrangements. So I sit with my headphones on and I have my microphone. So I just want to be totally clean in my head when I hear the stuff. So the first thing that I come up with, I kind of record just to remember it, which kind of leads me into the way of where I'm going with it. And sometimes some words just come out by accident or by instinct, which really fits the chorus maybe if I find a good melody. And then, I just work the lyric out of that. And sometimes I start to write the lyric in one direction, and suddenly just one word kind of changes the direction of the lyric. Oh yeah, it would be cooler if I wrote it like that instead, So it's very different from project to project as well. I mean, sometimes like Gus, sometimes he has an idea for a title, and he kind of, hey, can you use this title? Would that work? And I was like, yeah, I can fit that in, and I write something around that title. So it's a bit different, And then, of course, it's a different thing when I'm actually writing the music as well, because then a lot of that melody thing and the lyric thing, that comes so early in the process already when you're writing the riff, or it all happens at the same time, more or less.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting too, because sometimes, as you've mentioned, you're working with a guitarist and you're working with someone else giving you feedback on that, but then so you do also sometimes write guitar riffs yourself for songs.
Oh yeah.
That's cool, because there's some people some of the singers, they're specifically singers and they write all the vocal parts, and then there's the singers that also help write with the whole package of the music as well. I think it's interesting hearing from the different perspectives.
Yeah, like a song like Son of the States of Time with Therion, for instance, I wrote the whole song myself. And of course I did the demo myself, and I played all the drums, bass, guitar, keyboard, and string arrangements and everything myself. So, I've got my own studio to do all that stuff as well. So and it's the same with my solo album as well. I mean, I write everything I've been writing everything myself and kind of producing everything myself as well, even though I have different drummers playing on it and other musicians playing some stuff as well.
Oh, yeah. Has that come out yet?
No, it's not. I mean, all the drums are recorded, and bass and guitar are recorded for 4 or 5 songs. So I work with that when I have some time left, which is, I mean, the last time I had time to work on the album was probably in March, April this year, because then we had our second kid in April, and now I went out on tour with Gus in May. And then the whole summer I was just, taking it easy with my family, with the newborn kid and our other kid as well. And then, I had other stuff to do in September. I was out 2 weeks with Gus again in Greece. So it's a question of having the time, because when I do my own album and the stuff I'm doing on that, I can't really just go into my studio and work for 2 hours and get anything done. I really need to kind of focus for 4 or 5 days to get stuff done, so it takes a while before it's finished, but it will be great. It will be really good. I feel really good about it.
I'm definitely really interested in hearing it too. Stylistically, how would you describe it compared to some of the other stuff you've done in the past?
Well, probably it's really hard to say. I mean, I get that question a lot, but it's it's probably. I would say if you like the stuff I did with Therion that I wrote, like Son of the States of Time and all that stuff, when it's like pretty big and powerful and kind of epic at times. Some of the songs are like that, and I don't know. I'd like to think that the songs are pretty different in style, but at the same time, there's like a certain sound to it and my voice and everything that just makes it feel like it's the same band or same artist anyway. But it's really hard. I mean, there's only one song that is probably a bit like in the Krux world, which is a slower song and all that stuff. Apart from that, it doesn't really sound like that. It's more, I don't know. You know, I'm kind of a big fan of artists like Dalbello as well. I don't know if you heard her.
Yeah, Lisa Dalbello.
Yeah, I listen a lot to Dalbello as well. So I mean, you can probably hear those influences here and there as well when it comes to melody lines, and you know, not deliberately, but I can kind of tell myself when I listen to it sometimes. So it's a mix of things. I mean, some songs are like 3 minutes long, and some songs are like 8 to 10 minutes long. It's like pretty different. But the way the music business is nowadays, it's like it's so hard to get like a proper record deal anyway. It's so hard to sell any albums anyway. So with my solo album, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make sure that I do exactly the album I want to do. I don't want to have anyone telling me that, oh, it's got to sound more like blah blah blah. So I'm like, fuck it. This is a non-profit project for me. I just know I put in so many hours, and I'm going to put so many hours into this, and I will, I don't expect to make one dime out of it. But for me, it's like doing my own painting that I put up on the wall afterwards. I just want to do something that I'm really proud of and I'm really, really happy with, to show myself and show other people what I can do by myself, So, I mean, that's the bottom line for me, to just think artistically about it. Don't think commercially about anything at all whatsoever. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, obviously there's some of the best albums you've been involved with, like you've said, have had a fair amount of your songwriting in it, like with Gothic Kabbalah and everything. Yeah. But I'm definitely excited by the idea of having an album where you do basically all of it, and, really get to, this is the Mats Levén album, I'm interested by that.
Well, I mean, some of those songs are like 10, 15 years old, the original ideas for it. And some stuff is like newer than that, but I know that after I've done this album, the next album I would do will probably not sound like that, there are so many different ways of writing that I'd like to do, and it's just that, so in that sense I really feel that this album will be kind of one sound on this, and then when I do the next solo album, that will definitely go much faster to do, and I have a lot of ideas for that as well, but that will probably sound a bit different as well, so, which is cool though. I mean, it's just such a liberating feeling to feel that I don't have to adjust to anyone else's ideas, That's the important thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah. And so is that something that we would expect to see released within the next year or so, or is it kind of still too early to say in terms of the process of release?
Yeah, I mean, the first problem is that I don't even know how to release it. It's like I don't even know now how to release it, and who knows, when I'm done with it in like 6 or 12 months, maybe some new way of releasing it has turned up, That's how it works nowadays. It's so, there's like different ways of doing it from year to year, I guess, So, of course, I mean, for me, being brought up with music for like 40 years, buying vinyls and CDs, of course I want to make a physical product of it as well, So, but how I'll do that, I don't know. If I release the album today, I would probably, I would have made my 500 vinyl copies, like limited edition and blah, 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 But I don't know. We have to see.
All right. That'll be interesting to see how it progresses and everything.
Yeah.
And so this next question is something I kind of enjoy asking people, because it's always interesting to hear the different responses. What are some of your studio vocal performances that you would say are some of the ones you're most proud of yourself?
Wow. Well, the thing is that that has to do, sometimes when you do stuff in the studio, maybe you didn't feel that good about it at the time, or maybe you just felt it was a fucking drag to do the studio thing, But sometimes 10 years later you listen to it, and you're like, oh fuck, this turned out well, you know. So maybe it wasn't that enjoyable while you did it, but it kind of turned out great, you know. But you couldn't just appreciate it at the time. So that happens sometimes. But one album that where I was really, really happy with, actually my vocals and how it turned out, was actually the Fatal Force album.
Yeah.
I really think that is probably the album where I'm like the happiest with the vocals, and nobody fucking heard it. It's like it's probably in that sense. I think that is like I was really happy with, because that was like the first time I kind of I recorded myself, and I was really happy with the sound in my cans, and I was really inspired when I did it. And I wrote, because you know, I wrote a lot of that stuff as well. So I just had a really good flow when I did that, you know. It was just turned out really, I was really, really happy with that. And apart from that, I know the Gothic Kabbalah stuff I think is really cool as well, but, you know, because I did get to sing in diverse ways, you know, which was cool. And then I'm really, you know, I'm really happy with the Krux stuff as well. I mean, until I did the shows with Candlemass, I always kind of felt that Krux was probably the thing that I'm the most happy with in my career when it comes to the way it sounds and how the live shows always turned out, you know. But now the only thing that that beats that is actually being on stage with Cannabis, you know.
Oh yeah.
Because that's like because we've done the shows we've done have been so good, and there are so many good songs to choose from, and I kind of felt that, yeah, this is I really, really feel comfortable doing this, and I really, really feel this is, I'm pretty close to who I am when I do this on stage, you know. I really feel I can just be myself, and, you know, it's really cool. It's really cool. But when we talk about studio recordings, yeah, I like the Fatal Force thing, and the Krux stuff, and I guess Gothic Kabbalah is cool as well. And I mean, you know, I've done other stuff as well. I mean, I've been doing a lot of just singing on one song on albums, like a guest thing as well. And sometimes those turn out really well as well. But I probably don't remember half of them right now. But you know, there are a lot of cool stuff that I've been involved with. So I probably forgot about, you know, yeah, one album that I'm really happy with as well is I'm a Sefer. That the Israel thing I did in 2008 or something. That turned out really, really well. I'm really happy with the vocals there, because I put a lot of work into that, because they had such specific ideas exactly about how the vocals should be, or not how they should be, but where the melodies and stuff. So we did like a combination of my melodies and their melodies, and it was such a big project from their side as well, with the whole Exodus thing, you know. Because the whole idea with Amma Sefer is to write three albums, you know, about the whole Exodus and the Old Testament thing. So I just, but still they haven't only had time to do the first album. But I was really, really happy with my performance on that one as well, and the whole performance of the whole project. So Amma Sefer is really also one of those things where I'm really happy with my result, but not that many people have heard it, you know. But it's you know, it was a big thing for them to do as well. It took a long time for them to do that album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was able to find some of those albums online to like listen to. Yeah. But when I would look for them where I could actually, you know, purchase them, they're hard to come by. I guess it's probably because in the U.S. they're just, you know, it's hard to get that stuff out there, really.
Well, it's Amma Sefer was released on Inside Out, and like a year maybe before Inside Out was bought up by some other blah blah blah, you know, something happened. So that was probably part of the thing. And then I know that Amma Sefer I recorded a couple of songs for the next album, because I wanted to have demos to show for like other labels, because I was searching for a new label like Nuclear Blast or whatever. But nothing ever happened with that, and I haven't been in contact with them for a couple of years now. So we have to see. But I'd love to do another Amma Sefer album, because that turned out great. It was really cool. It was like a combination of Gladiator meets metal or whatever. But in a good way. But in a good way, you know. Okay, sometimes the songs were a bit too long. Maybe it was a bit too cinematic, so to speak, to make it interesting. But I mean, sometimes it turned out really, really well as well. So yeah, I'm happy about that one.
That's cool to hear. Now, is it you doing on the Amaseffer album? Are you doing the spoken parts in it as well?
Not the spoken parts that are like in Israeli language or Hebrew. That's not me. That's one of the guys in the band. So I mean, the only guest I remember, there's like an Israeli vocalist, a female vocalist that I'm singing a duet with, and then it's Angela Gosov, who used to sing with Arch Enemy. She's just doing some screams and stuff in one song, and there's some Hebrew spoken stuff that is not me. That is one of the guys in the band.
Oh, okay, cool. I was curious about that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting you mentioned Fatal Force as being one of your favorites because interestingly, one of my favorite vocal performances of yours is actually on that album, and it's the song Far Away.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, but you can tell that, I was like, I was really inspired when I did those vocals.
Yeah, I think you can hear it. It's in Insanity. That's a cool one too.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, so it's cool to hear your perspective on some of that.
Yeah.
And I think that covers most of the ground I wanted to cover during the interview. So I really appreciate that you had taken time out to do this and everything.
No problem, man.
All right, yeah. And so is there anything else we should be looking forward to, the Mats Levén fans out there? They have upcoming besides Aeonsgate?
No, it's like Aeonsgate, and like I said, I'm doing that Hollow Haze album right now, which is like an Italian guitar player. It's like a bit like progressive, kind of or orchestral symphonic kind of thing. So I guess that will be released next year, and I'll probably do a couple of songs on the next Gus G album that probably will be released next year as well. So those are probably the releases I know about right now. Apart from that, we'll probably do the occasional Candlemass shows, and I'll be working on my solo album and probably do some more touring with Gus in the beginning of next year, maybe. I still don't know the details about that. So, I mean, that is about as much as I know right now, actually. So, we'll see, new things turn up all the time, so. Which is good, as long as it's like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, looking at your discography, there's definitely a lot of stuff that can come up.
Yeah, well, it's like, because sometimes, I get asked to do different stuff, and, in most cases I say no to it because I might not feel that it's my genre or style, or I might not feel that I have the time because I got other stuff to do. But like this Hollow Haze thing I'm doing right now, I kind of do that because I felt that I have the time to do that because I'm not going out to tour or anything the rest of this year. So it's it's all a question of timing actually when people ask me to do stuff sometimes, and of course sometimes it has to do with how good the material is as well. I don't want to be singing on stuff that I can't really, promote myself, so to speak.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, thanks for doing the interview.
No problem, man. Good talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great talking, and look forward to your upcoming stuff.
Thanks, man. Cool, man.
All right.
Okay, thanks for the talk. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, man.